Recording.
Interview with Mr. Max Pepper at the Syracuse Armory, 30 March 2001. Interviewer is Lieutenant Colonel Robert von Hassel. Videographer is Mr. Wayne Clark. Mr. Pepper, tell me where you were born and raised.
Born in Brooklyn, New York. We lived there till I was 9, and we moved to Syracuse, New York.
Okay. Why did your family move to Syracuse?
Well, New York City, Brooklyn is pretty rugged. As I remember, I was 9 when we moved up here. Financial and better living conditions, I'd say, smaller city.
Tell me a little bit about your family.
Well, all right, my dad and mother both came from Russia, Ukraine to be exact. We came to this country, I'm going to say, in 1922, give or take, because I had an older brother that, as I say, we lost just several months ago, 3 years older than I, and Joe was born in Cuba. My folks had to stay in Cuba for about a year on the way to emigrate to this country.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I say, I came up here, and my dad went in the automobile business, and he was in that till we lost him here. My dad and mother both attained the age of over 90. My dad died at 91, and my mother at 93 in 1890 and 92, I think that's. He was a hard worker. He was up every morning, even until he was 80, he'd get up and do a day's work. He enjoyed it.
What about brothers and sisters?
I had 2 brothers. The older one, he was in World War II, and he died here about 3 months ago. I have a younger brother who was just about 11 years younger. He missed the war.
So what was it like growing up in Syracuse?
Syracuse was a very, very nice city. Still is, but you know, it was very nice to grow up in, and it was economically good. It was, and for, you know, and the university, of course, is a big factor at Syracuse University. As a matter of fact, I still chuckle about it. When I was a senior, we had an assistant principal at Nottingham. I remember Mr. Kuhn, C-O-O-N. And I said, you know, what college should I go to? What, you know, this and that, any suggestions? And I'll never forget the way he said, "Why, Syracuse, of course, my boy." He was head of the Alumni Association. I didn't know that. So I went to Syracuse.
Now, were you in the university when the war broke out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what were you studying?
Pre-law.
Mm-hmm.
Pakistani English. I started Syracuse University 16, just short of 17 years old, in September of 41. And the war, of course, broke out a couple months later when I was 17. The summer of 42, for whatever reasons, I don't remember, but I was smart enough or lucky enough to go to summer school. I think my thinking was, get all the education you can get while you're getting it. So I took, as I recall, 7 hours of summer school, which later on helped me tremendously get into law school. Then, when I was 18, as I say, I tried to enlist in Air Corps cadets, and I ultimately did. My mother had to sign for me for flying. Flying was the thing that was the duty that you were not required to. By the way, on the side, I believe I'm right on this. At any time that we wanted to, we could stop flying. In other words, I graduated as a navigator. Because I was a navigator and agreed to fly, I was given a commission. Because of that, that's it. But if I said, I don't want to fly anymore, there was no court-martial, there was nothing like that, you were just, of course, I assume you would lose your commission because you were given that for flying. But the point is, you did not have to fly. It was voluntary the whole World War II. The other thing I want to say now is that it was the Army Air Corps. There's a difference between that and the Air Force today, more than administrative, and the difference is this. During the battle, one of the differences anyway, during the Battle of the Bulge, they needed bodies over in France. Our group, and I guess all the air bases, received orders from upstairs. They wanted 5% of the ground personnel. I'm not 100% sure of that number, but they did want ground personnel that were non-essential, so to speak. They were given a rifle and sent over to France. These fellows, some of them hadn't seen a rifle in 2 years, or, you know, I mean, they were. And now, of course, now that the Air Corps, Air Force, I should say, is separate from the Army, they can't do it that way. It would be a different thing. That was you're in the Army.
Mhm.
So that is a major difference, as I see it, between one and the other. And the only other thing I say, if there's another war and I'm in it, I want to be a meteorologist. Get out and tell the fellas what it's like out there, and you go back to bed. Forgive me if you're a meteorologist.
No, actually, I'm not. Now, tell us about, you signed up, you got into the aviation cadets.
Yes.
Where did you go initially for training?
All right, well, let me back up a little bit. My actual date that I signed up was accepted was December 15th of 42. And when I say I'm talking about maybe hundreds of us, thousands throughout the country. You know, I mean, we're all in the same categories pretty much. We all were eager to go, etc. And I was still on campus. They didn't have room for us. They said, you go to school and do what's what, and we'll call you as soon as we have room. Now, the call came, I left here February 24th of 43 for active duty. We took the train on the way down. There was Delaware, Lackawanna, they're out, I guess, DL and W, and it went down to Atlantic City. That's where we took basic.
Mm-hmm.
We picked up kids from Cornell, Colgate, these are basically college kids. All of us that had 1, 2, 3 years of college primarily. And we got into Atlantic City about 4 or 5 in the morning. And the first thing they did, some corporals or sergeants had us out, I want to say elbows and butts, police in the area. We were in the service for 12 hours or something like that. And they had taken over, the Air Corps had taken over all the hotels in Atlantic City, and the other base, I think, was Miami, Florida. Mm-hmm. And we were at the Chelsea Hotel in Atlantic City, and we were on the I was on the 7th floor. You did not use the elevator. There was one elevator. We were not allowed to use it. And we really didn't need any exercise, because one day I counted, we went up and down 18 times. We were there 30 days. And then we shipped out, had our training and basic. We drilled on the beach. The hotels were right on the beach, right where we're talking. And from there, they sent us to college training detachments. And imagine my surprise when the train goes through Syracuse up to Oswego. Mm-hmm. And there was 300 of us at Oswego. We used to call it Oswego State Teachers College. Now it's the University of Oswego, State of New York at Oswego or whatever. And I'm not sure of the purpose there. It may have been for more academics. As I say, we had 1, 2, or 3, most of us had 1, 2, or 3 years of school. And they broke us down into, there's 300 of us. They broke us down into 10 groups of 30 each. And the way they did that, they used the grades that we received and the initial multiple choice test that I'm talking about, that I had previously mentioned, to get into Air Corps cadets to begin with. We were not Air Corps cadets yet, we were aviation students. Technically, we were not cadets at that point. And we broke down 10 groups of 30, and I was in the first group of 30. And as they got called, classification was Nashville, Tennessee, the National Army Air Base there. And they got calls, and they got one call, they needed 14 out of our group. This was the first call we had. And this was on a weekend. And I was told that I couldn't have my 24-hour pass that weekend because I was the number 1, I was number 15, and they needed standby. So I was a standby. So I knew my ranking out of the 300 was 15. I don't know if that was good. Well, I don't know if that was good or bad. So the 14 went, and a couple of weeks later we went, and we went down about the middle of May to Nashville, Tennessee for classification. And they classified you basically if you were qualified. It took 1 full week of exams, mental, physical, abilities. For example, they put 4 of us into a room, maybe 10 by 10, and they had a jigsaw puzzle on the table. The jigsaw puzzle was made of wood, and it was maybe 1 inch thick. And the 4 of us were to put this puzzle together. And what they told us, well, no secret, they're behind what we call one-way glass. I mean, looking, there was no secret, they told us that. And the thing is to see how well we could do, and also to see how well we work together with others. That was one test, I remember to this day. They had a, like a Victrola with a record on it. I don't know if you've seen the old records before tapes, but the hole was off center. And they gave you like a pencil with a electric wire going to the control there. And it was a white spot on this record, and you had to hold this thing on the white spot, and it kept track of how many times it went off, how many times it went off. Coordination were done. They had an open cockpit, just like I'm sitting in now, with controls in front of you, and the test giver, if you will, would, among other things, he'd call off numbers. He went up to 8 digits, and you had to call back the numbers that he gave you. I'm just giving you. Then they had the Rorschach test. They had the pictures on the wall. What does that make you think of? And is it the color, or is it the shape that makes you think of this? It's amazing. I remember so much of this. And on, this type of thing. Okay. Then they rated you, whether you were qualified and how well you were qualified, pilot, bombardier, or navigator. Those were the 3 basic things that you get and get a commission for. And we were rated on each one separately. So, and they also ask you what you wanted to be. So I said, I could write that down. I want to be what the test shows I'm best qualified for. Now this is on the 3 items we're talking about: bombardier, navigator, bombardier, pilot. So, okay. A few days later, after this, I get called in, and the sergeant says to me, according to what you said here, you're going to go to navigation school. And is that what you're best qualified for? Well, that's what happened. I wound up as a navigator with some few things in between there. But ultimately, I went to navigation school at San Marcos, Texas. And graduated navigation school August of '44. I also, pardon me, back up a minute, in between there I went to 6 weeks or more of gunnery school, flexible gunnery at Tyndall Field, Florida. Mm-hmm. And I got my commission August of '44 and was sent. Ultimately, I went to, I think, Lincoln, Nebraska was distribution center. From there, they sent me to Boise, Idaho, Gown Field, which at the time was Army Air Corps. And that's where I joined the crew. And it was a B-24 Liberator base. The crew was already there. The navigators were in the greatest demand at the time for some reason. They were short of them, and we joined up. The first time I flew with Sam, the pilot, and co-pilot Earl, we landed and we came as close to getting killed as I ever got in combat. Again, you had to be there. You did not fly like they fly civilians. You have so many minutes between planes. You do this, you do that. We came in one after the other, and that first time, you could not stay in the nose. I had to get out of the nose. You navigate in the B-24, you crawl under the flight deck. There's a tunnel, and you go up to the nose of the ship. The B-24s had a habit, we never had it happen, of the nose wheel collapsing every now and then. And if you were in the nose, you were in trouble. So you got out of the nose and got up on the flight deck for landing. So I'm standing behind the pilot and co-pilot, in between there. And he landed right wing. We had prop wash, I'll never forget it, and that right wing dipped and was about 1 inch from the runway. If it hits the runway, we just cartwheel. You're done. And I realized it happened so fast. Now, we landed okay, but there's nothing you could do. If anything happened, it just boom. So, you don't worry about things you can't happen, that you can't help too much anyway. One of the incidents there, the humorous incidents, if I may, I'm 20 years old now, and Sam, the pilot's 21, co-pilot's 22. The rest of the crew are in that category. And there was a dance hall, if you will, in Boise. roughly speaking, very roughly, maybe 50 feet, a rectangle, same as 50 feet wide, 100 feet long. There was a bar in the long end, and you go up, you get something, you get a drink. There's no service, there's no waiters or waitresses. You'd order, and you go to find a table, you sit down. I think there was a three-piece band live, and you'd look around, you see a couple girls at one of the tables, you go over and ask her to dance. You know, that's what it was. Against the narrow wall, a 50-foot wall, the 2nd Air Force, that's what we were in at the time, the football team, they had played that day. And they were sauntering in, and as more of them came in, they'd grab another table and add it, and we're sitting at the next table over, by the way. So they've got about 20, 25 of them now sitting over there. We went overseas without a bombardier, but in the States we trained with a bombardier, Bernie Reed. Bernie was about 5'9", 160, 65, nice guy. And he got up and he says, "Fellas, I'm going to ask a young lady to dance me back." He goes, and then we go. I don't remember exactly what happened, except after a few minutes, Bernie comes back, his chair is gone. I'm sitting with the pilot and co-pilot, and Bernie's chair is gone. No one, it was gone, and someone took it while we were all up away from the table. Now, this is the next table over from the football table. So Bernie goes over to their table. Again, we're not watching him because we're in conversation, Sam, the pilot, co-pilot, myself. And all of a sudden, the place, you could hear a pin drop. All the noise stopped. Everything stopped dead. And we look over, and there's Bernie standing, and he's facing 25, 30, they got, and these players who were on the dance floor dancing, they were edging in. They were waiting to tear that place apart. That was that's what they wanted to do. And my reaction, I got madder than hell. I says, we are about ready to finish and go overseas. We have no choice to go over and back up Bernie. I'm going to be in a hospital for 6 months, but I have no choice. That was it. We go over there, the three of us, and for some reason, I'm the spokesman. Mm-hmm. What's the problem here? A fellow by the name of Indian Jack, about 275 pounds. In those days, that was real big on the players. Just like that. He accused us of stealing his chair. I'm thinking, how awful is it? And just about then, when I'm waiting for things to really break, I don't know if you ever heard of Glenn Dobbs, All-American for University of Tulsa, just before the war, 40, 41, I can't tell you exactly where. He is with the team. He was an administrative officer, second lieutenant, and he gets between us, and he, just like this, and they're talking to me more than, I don't know why, but I was the spokesman. Gentlemen, these are athletes. They're tense, they played today, they're nervous. Why don't we just sit down and forget the whole thing? I was never so happy in my life. They'd have mopped the floor, they'd have killed us. Incidentally, I have a daughter in Tulsa. So about 3-4 years ago, we were visiting, and I said, I'm going to call Glenn Dobbs. I understand he's an assistant coach at the University of Tulsa. And I called up, and they said, no, he retired last year, but here's his home number. Make a long story short, I called that number, and a man answers, and I said, I'm looking for Glenn Dobbs. He said, this is he. And I explained to him, he said, I remember. So I kid about it, but I'm serious. That's probably as close. We came pretty close to being in the hospital for a long time. Okay, we finished training employed in there, and we go overseas. Now, what they did, we go to Topeka, Kansas, was staging area, the air base there. And what they did there, I just had the list of the crews that had come together, that had graduated from operational training, and boat, fly, ship or boat, whatever you want to call it, every other crew, because they didn't need all the planes apparently, they were pretty well set by then. So we got the boat. And it was an experience that we enjoyed. We went by train, of course, to Camp Miles Standish, near Boston there, Taunton, I think is the name of the town, in Rhode Island, if I'm correct. And we left, and talk about funny stories, okay. It took us 5 days, by the way, we made good time. I say no convoy, we were fast enough. But in order to eat at the captain's mess, you had to be a major or better. Now, you know, the Air Corps, I don't have to tell you how many officers there are, percentage-wise, there was a slew of us. The first night out, I bluffed my way. I was pretty honest, I must say that. But I did bluff my way into the captain's mess. There was a chief warrant officer in the Navy, whatever, I think that's what he was, at the door checking passes. I said, left it back in the cabin, blah, blah. He let me in. Of course, you can only do that once. The point I'm making, the next morning I'm topside, and someone calls out, "Hey, Pepper!" I knew instantly it wasn't anyone of my crew, wasn't anyone that, you know. I turned around, and he says, "Don't you remember me? Syracuse University, sophomore English." I sat in the back of the room, and then so. Okay, I knew who he was. We'd never dated, doubled, or gone out together or anything like that, but long lost buddies now. We're, you know, it's a different world. He was Lieutenant JG in the Navy, and he was athletic and recreation officer, permanent party on board ship. Now the Navy had taken over these ships, and you know, the Navy ship. So we chewed the fat for a while. Now I don't like to ask for favors for two reasons. I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to be obligated, etc. So he says to me, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Just like that. I said, "Well, now that you mention it, our chances for a pass to the captain's mess." Now they had 3 seatings for the mess. Like lunch would be 11:30 one seating, 12 the second, and 12:30 the third seating. You had tablecloths. Not to talk about the Navy. I have the menu from that first night. They printed a menu each day with that date on it. Tablecloths. This is wartime. At any rate, so I have those ones. We got over to England, and we got in, I must tell you this, a Saturday evening. The British could not unload until Monday morning. The British didn't work on Sundays. God bless them. I say that sincerely. I mean that. They did not. We had to stay on board ship 36 extra hours, and one Monday morning, they sent us to a redistribution center. In about 2 or 3 days, we were at our base, where we were going to be. You get over to the base. As you know, the group is the main thing. I mean, I was in the 68th Squadron. There was 4 squadrons, and each squadron lived in a different part of the field. But still, to me, the group is the thing. The colonel, a full colonel, was in charge of the group. Our squadron commander was a lieutenant colonel, but that to me was more administrative than, you know, we had. You ate in, we did have 2 mess halls, by the way, and 2 officers' clubs. There was the permanent party, and there was the combat officers' club. So, of course, we were in the combat officers' club, and the reasons for that are obvious, and you know, they didn't want you to get too friendly, etc., etc. But we had about 2 weeks of orientation, roughly, flying in the area to get acclimated navigation-wise. Sam and the co-pilot get familiar with the field and the procedures, etc. And about the 3rd or 4th day we were there, I was walking back from the flight line from some meeting in one of the hangars, I believe, and I hear this sharp explosion. Sharp, that's hard to describe, it wasn't just me. I get back to the barracks, and they're already cleaning out. I'll never forget Lieutenant Bledsoe. He had aborted the mission. He had 1 engine out on landing. It cracked up, another bomb went off. The whole crew is gone. We hadn't flown combat yet. This was let's say we were only there a few days. Everything was gone from his cot, his area. All right, we flew our first mission. I'm trying to think now. Oh, we did not take a bombardier overseas with us. Now, in the States, I'm backtracking, our training, we cross-trained. You train the bombardier enough navigation so if you're not able, he can bring the ship back. The pilot should be able to do that. He trained me on using the bomb sight in the States. We lost a couple bombs on the Snake River up to someplace. But there was we went over without the bombardier. and I became navigator bombardier. And what they did, I think, I don't know if we or the British had invented this, they had what we called in our plane an intervalometer. Now, B-24, there was 4 rows of bombs, and each one had 5 declams so you could put bombs on. So there's 20 releases, 20 different, I don't know the exact terminology. I had a electrical thing with little lights and toggle switches for 20 of them. And in the navigation bombardier briefing, they tell us just how to set up the intervalometer. So that's my job, to set it up. We get to the initial point. The plane was mine, so to speak. You make sure the bomb bay doors are open, but I don't drop the bombs because this was set up now when the lead ship drops the bomb, you get a radio impulse to my plane, and they would drop on the lead ship's release. So I performed, and a matter of fact, the bombardiering was pretty simple. The navigation was not that simple. Now we're basically in formation, but I'm going to say that about half of the time you either went and met the formation someplace on the continent, or you were alone going there, or you were alone coming back for various reasons. Now you might have, incidentally, we had the best pictures of I say that, I shouldn't say it that way. I'm jumping over the place now, I'm not going chronological necessarily. We flew one mission that was not strategic, so to speak. It was a tactical mission, and we dropped supplies. It was not a bomb run. It was 440, I think, B-24s. Montgomery, Patton had crossed the Rhine the day before. Montgomery was on the north flank, and he was crossing the Rhine that morning. Montgomery was not going to cross until this little town of Wessel, where we got supplies, where we had, until we were dropping supplies for him there. He was very conservative. So the group photographer put the camera in our plane, in the nose of the plane. I don't know anything about photography, even today I don't. And what he said to me was, he said, Max, when you see anything interesting, just squeeze the bulb. Everything else is all set. All you gotta do is squeeze the bulb. And the thing was, the camera was in the nose of the ship there. So I did. I saw the burning, we got in there, the burning gliders and the Red Cross base hospital set up already, among other things. And I took pictures, and we came back. Now, the thing I want to mention is this: when you have a camera, you leave the formation. They want you back early, regardless of what it is, so they can develop the pictures, and when everyone else gets back, they can interrogate you. The intelligence can do a lot better. They got the photos. They took the camera out of the plane, and the camera had jammed up after about half a dozen pictures. He almost cried like a baby, and I was very upset about it. No way I could know. It was just one of those things. But the point I'm making is, many, many times, you bombed through undercast about half the time. You didn't see the target. Mm-hmm. And you didn't know where you were. You needed the navigator, you'd leave alone. Our first mission, the day before the first mission, plane was set, we were ready. We were briefed, we went out to the plane, you couldn't see your hand in front of your eyes. They scrubbed the mission, we didn't even take off. The next day, it was the same mission. The bombs had not been removed from the plane. And put them back in. Okay, I tell you that because it becomes important. We get up, we're in formation, altitude, bombs away. Nothing happens. Bombs are not away. And I thought I had goofed around, checked everything. What had happened is that the moisture had frozen the bombs in the bomb bay because they had let them stay in overnight. They can go out. Earl pulls, there was an emergency release on the flight deck, which was a mechanical cable just over me. They still didn't go out. We're not going to land now with a bomb load. So there was a jettison point in the North Sea. We leave the formation and we fly up there. We get down to 2,000–3,000. They still had to go out there and release these bombs one at a time to get them out. So what I'm saying is, you you went alone, you came back with formation, you went with a formation, various ways. You weren't in formation about half the time, I'd say. We're in formation one day, and of course, again, because it's undercast, and we navigators will vary a little bit, 1 or 2 minutes in our time or over the initial point and over this and that. Bomb bay doors open on the bomb run, and the upper group is sort of oscillating over us. Sam pulls back just a little bit. I don't remember how much, but a little bit. Waiting for these bombs to go. We don't want to get hit by the bombs from the high. We get back to the base, and Colonel Snively, who was the base commander, full colonel, calls us. I don't remember why I was there. I mean, I was standing next to Sam. Don't ask me why, because he chewed Sam's butt. Exact words. Sam says, "Sir, they were, he said, you fly your plane and let them fly their plane." Exact words. We were told, in the States, you navigate, and every 20 minutes, the way we were trained, you put a entry, unless you're making a turn or something, but normally every 20 minutes you put a navigation position report on in the log. So no one had said anything about that overseas, and after the first flight or so, you turn in your logs and everything, and it was a chief navigator, a Major Vaughn, and they called me, he said, "Max, what's this?" I said, "Well, what do you mean, sir?" He says, "Well, I says, "That's what I was taught in the States, every 20 minutes, this and that." He says, "We don't do it that way here." He says, "We do it every couple of minutes. If you get killed, someone else has got to take over and bring the plane back." It was that simple. No problem. That's what we did. The British had invented the G-box, that they had perfected it, which was similar to Loran, only it didn't have the range of Loran, because of course our missions weren't as long as they were in the Pacific. And this, I brought the plane in on a couple occasions. It could bring you right to the end of the runway. That's how accurate it was, using it properly. One of the things that scared me, believe it or not, was bailing out. I never had it. Like what? I'd look down there at 24, 25, 26,000 feet. I had a deal with Sam. If we got hit, if we could crash land, I'd go with the plane. I mean, if we had any, if we had the option and it was a fair chance, I'd stay with the plane. Well, I wasn't quite accurate. We're flying one day, and now the nose gunner is in a turret. The turret has the double door. Then the bulkhead has a double door. So he can't get out unless, once the nose gunner's in there, I got to release the bulkhead door for him to get out. I am wearing the pilot and co-pilot are wearing the chutes that they sit on. The rest of the crew have the harnesses and the chest chute, which you take off the chute when you're working there navigating, and it's right there, and you got the two rings. If you need it, boom, it's on. I'm in the nose, and all of a sudden, whoosh, just like that, and it's full of smoke. Without thinking, and I stress, without thinking, I grabbed the chute with one hand and pulled it on and opened the doors with the other, and I'm ready to bail out. But then the plane is still flying, steady and level. What happened? We got hit by a smoke marker of one of our lead ships. So we weren't hurt, although Sam couldn't see too much. It was a little tricky flying the rest of the day. There's a lot of amusing little things. Oh, we were 17 miles due west of Norwich, England, spelled Norwich. City of about 100,000. And I'd met a young girl, and I saw her now and then. We had, every hour, we had what we called the bus, a Liberty Run, or it was a truck, it wasn't a bus, but go into town and back and this and that. So I hadn't seen her in a while, and I'm in our barracks in Sag. We had 14 officers in the Nissen hut, Quonset hut, Nissen hut. Seconds, first, captains. Major and better, as you know, were separate. So the charge of CQ comes in, he says, "Lieutenant Farber, telephone call." I thought it scared the hell out of me. The only thing I could think, but this is a combat base. The only thing I could think of, someone at home had died or something like that. Who's calling me the base? I go in and pick up the phone. Max, this is Audie. This is the young girl. How to this day, how she got through on that phone, I don't know. But I do know one thing. I couldn't talk to her. She said, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm going to see you. Well, if I say to her, I'm going to see you tomorrow, it means I'm not flying.
Right.
If I'm saying I can't see you tomorrow, it could be, it's saying that I am flying. So I couldn't say, I'll see you as soon as I can. I've been busy. I can't talk right now. I hung up. I wanted to get off the phone. That's sure as hell are monitoring it. If they're not, they better be. So these are little, the humorous things. Incidentally, I had a friend in Syracuse who knew my parents, and he was over there in the medics. So he gets my address and stops over one day. And I look up and there's Bob. And he had been there a year or so before I got there, and he gave me the name Athens Cafe. 5 shillings, which was $1 in those days. 20 shilling was 20 cents. Steak. It may have been horse meat, I don't know, but it was excellent. This is during the war, So I stress that. But getting back to combat. Now, I am Jewish. I say that for reasons you'll see in a minute. Pilot, Protestant Baptist, co-pilot, Catholic. So we had the Western religions sort of covered. Before takeoff, the chaplain, Catholic chaplain, would have the Catholic boys in the hangar, give them absolution. Earl comes out to the plane, and his jaw is on the ground. I mean, I've listened, apparently it's pretty much the last rites. You're not coming back. It's pretty serious, as I understand. I mean, it was not a good morale builder, is what I'm saying. So, because we found out that the colonel had a conversation, and you have to be very careful, getting into religion, I have to tell you this. And apparently asked him if he could raise it a notch, and he did. So, we talk about the humorous episodes there. The pilot was excellent. Sam, I'm very fortunate in having an excellent pilot and an excellent co-pilot. Now, the co-pilot was trained at first pilot school. He was supposed to have his own plane. But what happened, during World War II, and I haven't mentioned this, they had flight officers who were warrant officers. Instead of having the red, they'd have it blue. But they were still warrant, and they were not a commissioned officer, although we treated him as such and all this. Our co-pilot was a flight officer, originally, when he graduated. He went to first pilot school, and then the Air Force came up with an edict that a warrant officer could not be an airplane commander, because it could be awkward. Here, I outrank him. Yet if he's the airplane commander, he is the boss in the air, not on the ground. Again, life's little things. We were a slow flying B-24. They put a new engine in it, and we were flying up toward Liverpool, skeleton crew. And Sam says, Max, do you want to get a little flying time? Pilot time? You want to sit here? Okay. So I'm sitting there, and Sam, of course, the co-pilot's there, and I'm sort of my thing. And Sam's having a ball. He's dropping the flaps, and he's dropping the landing gear while I'm at the wheel, at the controls. And I turn around and say, Sam, you get $250 a month for flying this. I get $250 a month for navigating. Sit down and fly. I mean, we got along very well, I tell you, which is something that you have to thank God for, because there are those that didn't make it because, well, for example, neither Sam nor I've never been drunk in my life. Now, I'm not bragging. I'm just stating a fact. But over there, some of these fellas would go out to the officers club and get fairly well tanked, and the next morning you're flying. Now you want a clear head, because if you have to make a decision, you don't have a lot of time to do it. I was lucky. Sam was in the same category. Neither one of us. Yeah, we go to a club and have a drink. That's about it, one drink. So I never had to worry about that. I don't know what I would have done had I had a pilot that was going up that was still not over had a hangover from the night before. This type of thing. Incidentally, Mike.
Let's hold there for a moment. We'll have to switch. Tape 2, interview with Mr. Max Pepper, Syracuse Armory, 30 March 2001.
Keep in mind, our plane was not pressurized. There were no bathrooms whatsoever. And our average flight was about 8 hours, I would say. Time, actually, from the time we took off to the time we landed. So you held it. Before takeoff, you could never go to the bathroom, and I'm not talking urinate. The minute that plane got off the ground, you were ready to go. I'm serious. I mean, this is facts. You held it, okay. So we're up at altitude, and what they had to urinate was like a, if you've ever seen when you siphon gas out of the car, maybe a 1/4-inch tube, a little funnel at the end. So the pilot, Sam, has got to go one day, and he's facing the back of the plane. He's got this thing, and the urine freezes as it hits it because you're pretty cold up there. He says, I don't know, I'm in the nose of it. He just ripped it out of you, mad at it. And what he did, he stood in the back of the flight deck, opened the doors, and there's the Bombay. But there's a catwalk going through there, and our doors slid. They didn't go open like a 17. And between that and the catwalk, these were not sealed. You had little, maybe a 32nd of an inch here and there. Where it was. And then in the back of the Bombay, you had another couple of doors, and you went to the waist of the plane, the 2 waist gunners, and the tail gunner. Okay. So he urinates on the crack of where the Bombay door closes to the catwalk. He does this 1 or 2 flights, I don't remember. And after every flight, you get down, and there's the intelligence officer, you sit around the table, the whole crew sits there, and what did you see? I turn in my log, what was this, what was that? So one of the gunners sitting next to me here, I'm here, and Sam is next to me here. And he says, gee, we've had a strange thing happen the last couple of flights, last couple of missions. I said, what do you mean? I didn't know what he was on. He said, we're up at altitude, and all of a sudden we get this fine mist spray in the back of the plane. It lasts maybe a minute, and that's it. Sam heard this. He looks at me, no one said a word to this day. He stopped doing it. Then we're flying one day. We're in the left wing. And I see a plane on our left. I didn't know what it was. It was a plane without a prop. And if you've ever seen these cartoons of buried around a big truck with the mustache and the goggles, this fella had the biggest, well, I'm not going to do the other language, but biggest, he was up there playing around all by himself, German jet, ME-262, and he's looking over at me. I'm like, oh, this thing, he was right next to us. He had fired a few rounds at one of the other planes. He didn't hit him. I don't think he really meant to. He was just up there. He was smiling. I mean, I could picture him today. And he just, last I saw, he gave it the gun. He just walked away from them. Because he could do, I think, at that time, over 500. And we were maybe 350 on the P-51s, which were an excellent plane, by the way. So I didn't know what it was. I put, of course, everything was in the log and this and that. There was a lot of, I started saying, getting down to the more serious things. In other words, you're in combat. Every now and then, a plane just didn't get off the ground. At the end of the runway, pile up. Too heavy. If we had, fuel was always a major consideration. If you had a short run, we'd give you less fuel. We carried 2,800 topped off, and I already had a long mission, 2,800 gallons, and after warm up, they top it off again. On the shorter mission, they give you a lot more bombs, bigger load. So you're never ahead when it comes to that. You were never 100% sure of how much gas you had, because the way it worked, the B-24 had 4 glass tubes in the back of the flight deck. And there was a butterfly valve which you'd open and let the gas in there, and the level of the gas would tell you how much gas was in one of the 4 tanks. You had 4 engines. Okay. You did not open the valve until after you left the bomb's way area, the target, because you didn't want, if you got any flak, you didn't want gas all over the flight deck, especially that. So what you do right after bomb's away, standard, I did some of this. I look back and I probably did a lot of stuff that Sam might have said, hey, what are you doing? But I did it. Call the engineer, Lafferty, will you check our gas? And I'm doing this because I know the next question that Sam's going to say to me. What's our ETA back to the base? How's our gas supply? And he'd always say to me, what do you think, Max? And I'd say, let's go. Only once did we land on the continent. We had France already and gas out. But he'd check that, tell you the gas, and I had this figured ahead of time. Once I got the gas, I knew, and I also had the course back, and I'd give that to Sam the minute he asked me, and once we got on it, I'd correct it a few degrees either way, you know. The old saying in the Air Corps navigation department, if you will, a good navigator is never lost. Uncertain at times, yes, but never lost. It's a big psychological difference between getting lost and uncertain. I remember when they found this plane 20, 30 years ago that had been lost in World War II in the Sahara Desert someplace, a B-24, and they found the skeletons later. It hurt me because what probably happened is that and I gotta be careful how I say this because, you know, they're gone, but I'm wondering if they had the rapport between the two of them or whether they panicked and didn't agree just what to do. There are procedures when you're uncertain how to search out what the why thing and this and that, and you just wonder. He and I had a tremendous rapport, which is good. As I say, he would say, what do you think, Max? And I'd say, let's go. There was two things involved. Number one, I say our own base. The British coast is really what we were concerned. Once we hit, you know, we didn't care too much. Once we get there, we were there. We could bail out. We could, whatever had to be done. Our crew basically was good. The radio operator was sort of weak, but that's fortunately it didn't enter into our equation. I covered for him. Well, you know, you get into these things. After VE Day, we got our orders, we were going to fly home, and then someone said, well, wait a minute, these navigators haven't practiced celestial navigation. You know, in Europe, you know, they're going to be flying the Atlantic. How about giving them a little practice? So what they did, they have us fly at night, a couple hours into Germany, almost due east, and then 300-400 miles out into the North Sea, due north, and then the triangle back to the base. That was more dangerous than flying the Atlantic in the daytime. And what happened, we are there, and I said to the radio operator, get me a fix, if you will, radio fix. So he gives me the fix, and I put it down. And a minute or two later, I looked down, it was undercast, virtually complete, but there was one, thank God, there was one little hole there, and I looked down, and there was a little indentation on the coast of Germany. You need luck, you need whatever you want to call it. And I looked, and I could pinpoint myself by that. It was a unique physical thing, this inlet on the coast. And we're about 25 miles away from our radio operator, what he told me. He had triangulated on these radio stations. I said, guess, I thought you told me we were here. And I just, you know, I just pinpointed and stuff. Oh, he said, oh, I forgot to tell you, Lieutenant Pepper, that was a Class 3 fix. Class 1 fix within 5 miles, Class 2 within 15, Class 3, who knows? He forgot to tell me. So, you know, fortunately, it worked out okay, but the crew was good enough. And I say, Sam was excellent. We flew the supply mission, as I told you, they lost. We were treetop level when we dropped supplies at Wessel from Montgomery, gas and ammo, on the east side of the Rhine River. There was a clearing about a half a mile by a mile, as I remember. And you were treetop, and we went up to slow down a little bit. They threw the stuff up on the parachute harnesses, you know, on the harness. And when we got back to the base, the figures we heard, and I was not, when you're a treetop or 100 and 200 feet and a B-24, sometimes you're dead. There's nothing you can do. As I say, at 20,000 feet, yes, you have a shot at it. But we heard at the time we'd lost over 40 planes, and with crews. The official records that I now have, there was a book that came out from the squadron records about 10 years ago, which I have, and that says they only lost 20 some odd. I don't know which is authentic, because I do know that during the war, the only losses they would admit were the ones the Germans knew about, the ones that were down in German territory. They're not going to admit to any more than that. So I don't know whether it was 40 or some odd or 20 some odd. We were not made for that type of thing. The B-24 was not, you know. But you did it. I mean, you didn't question that. Don't get me wrong. These were the orders. That's what you do. And we were fortunate. we had, as I say, the pilot was good. I was good, if I may, seriously. I took my work serious. There was an old saying, there's no room in a dinghy for a lost navigator. My greatest fear, and I don't want to misinterpret this, was not getting killed. Not that I wanted, that's not what I'm saying. You know, but what I am saying, but my greatest conscious, real thing was screwing up as a navigator, where we could get shot down or something. For example, if I'm correct now, there's a little island of Heligoland off the German coast. That was about 15 miles from the coast, because I worked this out at the time. And we flew in, flying east, and we flew right between, and you couldn't see it. Again, it's undercast, so you're not 100% sure just how close you are. But you fly, and we were flying solo, don't ask me why neither. I figured out the range of their 88 millimeter anti-aircraft, I think that's right, of the German guns. If they have a gun on the island and a gun on the coast, and our altitude was 25 or 26, my computation was if we were dead center, 15 miles across, 7.5 miles from each side, the guns couldn't reach us. But if we were a little bit off either side, they could. Believe me, that makes a good navigator. You got to do it, you do it. Yeah, I mean, that's my point. Little difficulties. I did just once get in a little bit of a scrape. They used to, basically, if we weren't flying, we were on our own. We could go into town, we do this. Every now and then they'd have a meeting or something just to keep us busy. So they had this navigation meeting. I mean, we're already, you know, over there several months where it's not a question of, I had a date with this little girl in town. So I said to one of the other navigators, I said, Jack, when they call the roll, I mean, you know, the sergeants called it, we had the class one, just yell here, they don't worry about it. That one time they did. So I marked as absent. That night, CU comes into the concert and says, Lieutenant Pepper, the colonel wants to see you in his quarters. This is Lieutenant Colonel Lenhausen, the squadron commander. I go over there, sir, Lieutenant Pepper reports his order. Max? I said, damn it all. He calls me Max, I'm in trouble. You know? Max, you missed the formation. Exact word, you missed the formation today. Where were you? Sir, I had a date. You know, what are you going to say? I mean, you know. He says that, and I'll finish this up. This is amusing. He says to me, well, when your social activities interfere with your combat training, we got to do something. He said, what can we do? Well, there's not too much you can do to a commissioned officer. I mean, we're not talking about general court martial, obviously. He says, when is your next 2-day pass? Now, what we did, we needed, to get to London was 90 miles, but it took 5 hours by train. They stopped every place. So you needed the 2-day pass to get to London. Otherwise, you didn't have enough time. And that's what we do. We go on a pass. We would make it 3 days. It run from 12, let's say noon on Monday to noon on Wednesday. You leave at 8 in the morning, get back on Wednesday night. So you have 3 days and 2 nights. And this was what they did on the base. He said, well, your next pass, you report to the CQ 0800 every morning, sign in, then you can leave. So I could, which was fair. Incidentally, I did go to one reunion about 5-6 years ago up in Chicago. We had to be there anyway to visit Muriel's aunt. So I did go, and I wanted to see if Lenhausen was still cooking this and that. And he was there, and we talked a little bit, and I was amazed. I'm 20 years old when I'm overseas. I wasn't 21, I was 20. He was 24 to 25, I mean, in there, and he was a major when we got there, probably a lieutenant colonel. And I was invited, I'm digressing now, but I want to do this. We were in Oklahoma, and I was invited to the Tinker Air Force Base Officers Club. And Jim Tanner had been base commander, and he retired and worked for the state, and I knew he and his wife. At any rate, they invited me out to the Officers Club. He was retired. And my thing that struck me the most, now this was about 3-4 years ago, the thing that really struck me is the fact that I went in there, we had lunch, and I'm looking around, and I see these majors, captains, etc. I said, my God, they're old. They were in their 30s. No, I'm serious. You know, we were in our early 20s. it was a different thing. I understand that. I mean, you know, you get promoted fast if the guy ahead of you gets knocked off. We know. But this is still my impression of that. And, you know, anyway, we flew, we hit Berlin, we hit Magdeburg, Kiel. I'm trying to think of some of the obvious ones I can think of. And when you took off, it sounds like, what is the feeling? Sort of, you're tense. You're not scared, so to speak, but you're apprehensive, I think, is maybe, you know, you don't know what the word is. Once you get in the air, you've got a job to do. I felt sorry for the gunners. They had no, I mean, they'd be searching the sky, but they had no, they weren't working. I was constantly working, as was the pilot and co-pilot. But the gunners just sitting there, just scanning the skies, you know, looking, and very honestly, by the time we got there, the major threat was not the German planes, it was the anti-aircraft guns. Because they didn't have what they had. They didn't have the fuel toward the last 6 to 8 months of the war. And what they would do, the Germans would save up the fuel, and then one day out of a week or whatever, they'd come, and whatever group they hit, they'd knock hell out of it, believe me. We had 50 caliber machine gun bullets. They do not compare with a 20 millimeter cannon. 20 millimeter cannon, when that hits you, you are hit. The difference, size-wise, is 1.5 times roughly, but actually it does a lot more damage than that. And also, a fighter aims that whole plane. He's a lot more accurate than the gunners. We know that. So we up in altitude, and I would sort of try to a point to give the gunners a running, and I don't mean constantly, but you know, over so now you can't see it, of course. When you see the ground, it's easy. You can't see it well, but I would. We're getting near so-and-so. This is one of their air bases, or this the white spots here are their gun emplacements, the heavy emplacements. And by the way, I have notes in the back of this, which were done at the time. Very minor notes, but anyway. Because here's fellows sitting for 8 hours, and 8 in 24 missions. My nose gunner, only one time did he get out of the nose. He had to go back and do wheelie, you know. And by the way, it was so tight in that nose turret that we had flak suits. They're like a umpire in baseball. There's front and back, you put it here. So Troxel said to me, he said, "Gee, Lieutenant, it's so tight in there, I can't use the back part. Can I leave it with you, the back of his flak jacket?" I said, "Certainly." So I have it. So we get near the target, and I'm thinking, on both sides of me, about that high roughly, there's the his 50 caliber machine gun ammunition. Of course, they face out. Nothing's getting through there. I'm putting this thing on. How good it is, I don't know. We got some holes now and then, but no one ever got hurt. So a direct hit or a hit from close isn't going to help too much, but regardless, it gives you a good feeling of security, and it would help. We know that. So the point I'm making, I have his half. What do I do with it? I put it on the floor and I stand on it. I'm going to, and seriously, I've got to protect myself. You know, you do what you can to get the odds in your favor if you can. Within the scope, we know if the plane gets hit and blows, you're gone. But you know, if someone inside gets hit or whatever, if you had a shot at it, you want as much of the odds as you do. The only thing, for example, that we were taught in parachutes. Tighten the harness as tight as you can get it so you can't stand up straight. But the other thing is this: if you bail out at night or when you can't see the ground, cross your legs before you hit. You probably break a leg, but that's a lot better than getting a branch up between them. I mean, you know, facts of life, and it's true. You think about it. Fortunately, we didn't have to, and that was fortunate. Incidentally, I was very conscientious and this and that, but we got back to the States after the E-Day. And we were at Sioux Falls, South Dakota, waiting whether we're going to the Pacific or what have you. And they had, it happened so fast, apparently they just thrown these barracks together. It's the only time that all ranks from colonels on down were the same, just open, big barracks. All they had was bunks in there. So they dropped the big one, and the war's over, and they send about 20 of us navigators down to Love Field, Dallas, Texas.
Mhm.
We're non-operational. All I had to do was get 4 hours of flight time a month. I get flight pay. And all of a sudden I hear they're sending the 20 of us to the Pacific to fly back, to navigate some planes back over there. So I said, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I went in to see the major who was in charge of this. I said, sir, I heard so-and-so. He said, yes. I said, well, I don't understand. He said, well, these navigators, they've been navigating the hump for a while, and they've had it rough, and we flew them home. And I said, the only time I spoke sort of vehemently to a superior officer, I said, what do you think we were doing over there in Germany? Playing tiddlywinks? He looked at me, we didn't go. I mean, you know, sometimes you wonder what they think of. And then I was discharged from Rome, Army Air Base here. Missed my 21st birthday. I was 21 on October 13th. And I was discharged October 27th, 2 weeks after, with terminal leave to December 2nd. Now, I can tell you a humorous story about being recalled for Korea, which is a long story. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, I went to law school and graduated law school, and after a couple of years, opened my office, and we were married in 1950, September 50, and I was waiting to be called. When we got out of Rome, there was a desk there, and we just signed the reserve. We're in the reserve. No, yeah, okay. So we had the volunteer air reserve. There was no flying or anything like that. There was no navigation training. I graduated law school, admitted to the bar. I sent in my papers, the documents, the copies. And I said, oh, give me a secondary rank of a legal officer, if you will, which they did. Okay. In a year later, summer of 51, I go to the mailbox, which is on the street, and I look, and I knew instantly what it was. It's funny how you know. I mean, you're getting mail from reserve, but you know. I opened, here it was. Recalled 6 weeks at Arlington, Texas for a navigation refresher, 6 weeks to Virginia, what do you call it? The base of Virginia, I can't even think of it now.
Langley?
Langley Field, Virginia, combat crew training. And they had changed the designation of the plane to a twin-engine bomber. 5th Air Force, Camp Stoneman, California, Tokyo. Well, I figured I'm in because I was healthy. I was married now. I'm in the reserve. I had opened a law office. I had worked for a couple of years for it, then I opened my own office. I'm doing fairly well. You know, the biggest thing in law is get clients. Things like that. Okay. I closed the office. I sent letters out. I've been recalled for Korea. I go down to, I think either Fort Dix or Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, take a physical. They had given the Air Corps one side of it, the Air Force. Now the Air Force is separate from the Army. And they had one side of it, they were given physical. Take the physical. I thought I had passed. And the last thing you do, I had, ostensibly I passed. The last thing you do, there was a medic, the doctor, who was a captain. He's sitting one side of the desk, I'm the other. He's just checking off. He's got a checklist. Anything since you're on active duty land? Well, I had my appendix out for you. Yeah, we know that's not it. Okay, good. The only other thing, I've developed sinus problems. I figured I'm going to Virginia and I'm going to Texas, my sinus would clear up. The minute I said sinus, he took this rubber stamp, HOLD, hold. Gets on the phone. I'm sending Lieutenant Pepper over, check the x-ray cavities of the sinuses, etc. I walk over to the base hospital, they put you on a table, they twirl it, so to speak, they take all these different pictures. And the next morning I go back to see the doctor as he told me to do. And he's looking, he said, well, you moved, we got to take him over. Calls up, sending Lieutenant Pepper back. Over again, I go back over and I take him again. The next morning, now I'm looking. Second x-rays confirm, first x-rays, chronic sinusitis, grounded. They didn't need me for anything except navigation, flying. So I figure, so he says to me, now this is the humorous part of the story. And I picture to this day, he says, now this is correctable by operation. I said, they jam needles or whatever. I mean, I know they clear up, they jam needles up there to clear up the sinuses, I guess. Whatever. Hey, that's it. That's it. You know, what are you going to do? You're in. And it's next line. You have this done by a civilian doctor at your expense, and we'll take you word for word. I sat there, I don't know how long, a few seconds. You know, to get the import, is he kidding? Is he pulling my leg? Is he serious? He's serious. And once I realized that, I broke out enough bigger. I said, tell you what, Doc, I'm going to go home and think about it. And he said, we'll call you in 6, 8 months for follow-up. But they never did because I think we started winding down. But I was Korea. Now, I will tell you this. I wasn't thrilled about Korea because that was a different thing entirely than World War II. With all due respect, I cannot tell you how I feel about Vietnam or these other things. I don't know. Again, you're not thinking about it. I do know that if you're going to be in a war, we had one, we knew what it was about, we knew we were fighting for. People today, unless they're old enough to understand it, don't realize prior to World War II, in the United States of America, the Communist Party was legal, the Nazi Bund was legal. You had a lot of people who did not want to get involved in European wars. They said, look, we were in World War I, what do we settle? You had the American first. There's legitimately honest Americans that were sincere. The worst mistake Japan made was bombing this Pearl Harbor because it gelled this country together. You know, something like that is done. It just, as I say, I think of these one day a year. What do we have? What's Memorial Day or this day? One day a year we celebrate these veterans. Look how many tens of thousands of kids didn't make it. Now, friendly fire mistakes that they made in training. We had a few killed in training. You can't help it. I mean, you know, it's amazing there weren't more when you think of the pressure was on. They did a good job at training around. They really didn't rush the pilot or the navigators. But still in all, you get these things, and it happens. We were training at Boise. We left, and some of the crews didn't leave with us. We get overseas, and a month later, we hear about one of the crews. They cracked up. Now, when you take off from Gonfield, as I remember it, if you took off to the north, you had to turn. There was a mountain right in front of you. This crew, the pilot we knew quite well, he didn't, about a month after, he stayed behind, and that was the end. He went right into the mountain. So, you know. Amusing anecdote. We're at Boise, Idaho, navigation mission. Boise down to Mare Island, San Francisco, round robin. We don't land. That's for me, it's navigation. We get down over to San Francisco Bay, I think, isn't it the big bay in there? Over the mountains, 12,000, we drop down to 8,000 feet, and we look down, and there is a monster of a battleship. It had to be either a big cruiser or a battleship. But it was a battleship. So Sam says, gee, let's take a better look at that. He starts circling lower, dropping down. And after a couple minutes, one of the gunners calls out. He says, you see what I see, Lieutenant? What? Look at the gun turrets. Every gun turret on that ship was tracking us. Sam says, I think we're low enough. Every one was tracking. You know, you get these, as I say, the humorous things involved there. We were, and then I think of it today sometimes that I did that. I don't believe it. I don't know how I had the guts to do it. I mean, I'm serious, you know. But what I think of is, to a degree, the older I get, the more I think these fellows didn't make it. I came back, I went to law school, got married, I have kids, I have grandkids I'm proud of. They're in the ground, they've been buried for 55 years, whatever it is. And one day a year we may think of them, the American public.
Now, you said you had kids?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters?
Yeah.
Now, what do they do now?
The older one is an attorney in Oklahoma City. The younger one is a housewife in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They'll be back here in a few years. The older one, the lawyer, her husband's a doctor, and the young one, her husband's in business. The grandkids are 16 and 12. The 16-year-old is getting to the stage where he's looking at colleges. He's got a couple years ago. He's looking good kids. I'm very proud. I'm proud of the girls. We never had any problem with them from any point. They graduated FM High here in Mendez, and we never had any, thank God, any problems with adult or you know. They're good, straight kids, and I'm very proud of them. And the grandkids are that way.
Are you still practicing?
Yeah, semi-retirement, yes. Yeah. I'd like to keep busy. If I'm home, I go batty. Incidentally, if I may be a little levity here, I would re-enlist, but they refused me kind of my age. Isn't that discrimination?
I would say so.
You get away with it.
I see in your record that it says you flew in the last mission, the 8th Air Force flew?
Yes, yeah. I didn't know that till 10 years ago when I got hold of the book. April 25th, 45 was the last mission that the 8th Air Force flew against Germany. And we were in that. We had some historic things. What else? I was invited back here 5 years ago for the 50th anniversary of VE Day. VE Day. We were in London. Now what happened, we had flown our 24 missions, and after so many missions, they send you to the flak shack or the rest home for 10 days. So we got our orders, and we went down to the rest home, and what happened, we had to change trains in London. We got our orders, and Earl and I, co-pilot and I, left 8 in the morning. Sam was going to come a couple hours later, the pilot. We get down to London about noon, and it was VE Day. There was 8 million people in the streets of London. They'd been at it, what, 6 years, 5, 6 years, whatever. You can imagine. Nothing was running. There's no way you could get the train. The trains weren't running. The cabs weren't running. We had to spend the day, VE Day, in London. So we're in London. We're over to Buckingham Palace, and I met a young lady. This is daytime now. I met a young lady in the room. I said, Earl, I'll meet you back here tonight at the hotel. American offices Red Cross Hotel. 9 o'clock tonight, okay. And we both, I met a young lady, he met a young lady. I'll never forget, we're about a quarter of a mile or more from Buckingham Palace. She and I walking, and we hear the crowd cheering and shouting, and all of a sudden she says to me, the king, just like that. She grabs my hand, starts running to Buckingham Palace. And the king and the queen and the 2 girls, they tell me now that Churchill was standing behind him. I don't remember Churchill, I remember that. And this would go on, and then they would go inside the king. They're up in this high balcony. And he and the family would go back in, and the crowd just keeps cheering and cheering. We want the king, and he comes out again. You know, this goes on. So we were actually in London. That just happened to be the breaks of the game, if you will, the way it works. In addition to that, as I say, we had the mission where we flew for Montgomery. We dropped supplies for him. We flew the last mission of the 8th in Europe, and there was a couple other items, so we let them know this, and they invited me to the celebration, the 50th anniversary of VE Day, which was 1995, May 8th of 95. Mm-hmm. So I write, and they tell me you got the British gave me the passes for the Hyde Park affair, for there were several affairs. The services Sunday morning in St. Paul's Cathedral had to come. They had to get the first approval of the American Embassy for the pass for that. So I call over there and get a hold of there was some master sergeant who was handling it. I forget his name, but I have it written down. And all arrangements were to be made, but when I leave here for London, I left here Saturday morning, planned to come back Tuesday morning, it was 3 days ago. I didn't have the pass to St. Paul's Cathedral. I had the letter that he was going to get it for me, but that's what I had. I get over there Saturday morning, and I figured maybe it's in the mail. I figured when I get to London, I get a hold of the embassy, and I get to London early Sunday morning, about 6 o'clock. I get to the hotel, I call the embassy. There is no live operator on that phone. To this day, I haven't forgiven. Goes, press 1, press 2, press, ultimately you got to get a live person. Nothing. So at any rate, what are you going to do? So I attend the functions on Sunday morning. I said, what I'll do, I'll get there an hour or so early at St. Paul's. I got the letter here. I get over to St. Paul's. I get about a mile away, and that's the security was so tight, you had to walk that last mile. They wouldn't let any vehicles in there. And I show them the letter, and they said, over there, and there's the Deputy Chief Police. I found out later, he's got all these pips up here, of London. Up on the stairway, I'm on the side entrance, it's small, not emergency entrance, but not the main entrance. So I show him the letter and this and that. Can I get in? He says to me, our orders are strict. Unless you have a pass, you can't get in these services. So I said the right thing to him. I said, I said, not at you. I said, I want you to know I'm pissed at the American embassy. I come 5,000 miles for this. The British, I have all your passes for all the different things. This here, they screwed up. So he said, well, wait over there a few minutes. So I'm out waiting. And after about 5 minutes, he comes out to me. He says, well, I don't think I'll get fired. Go in there and grab a seat there next to the Russian ambassador. So I did it then. But due to the good graces of the British on that, I should have got back to the embassy, but I never did. You know, what are you going to do? Who are you going to chew out? Where are you going?
Let me ask you a couple other questions. Now, when the war started, you were at Syracuse University.
Yes.
Do you remember any particular activities among the college students related to the war, or civil defense, or anything like that?
No, really, no. We were all gung-ho, that I can tell you. And when I say I, you can multiply that by tens of thousands at that time.
You know, after the war, a lot of people said that there was a strategic bombing survey done by the U.S. government, and the report came back that basically the strategic bombing of Germany hadn't accomplished anything. You have any thoughts on that?
Not really, because I don't know the answer. I don't see how it could not have affected it. If you knock out the oil supplies, you know, now how much it affected, that's something else. I can't tell you. But you knock out there at Schweinfurt the ball bearing plants. What can move without ball bearing? You know, I would say it was just whether it was worth the cost. I don't know. We lost about tens of thousands. You know, that I don't know. But basically. No, we flew, when I think about this, we flew, we were not hidden, we were up there. Here we are, our group would put up between 30 and 40 planes in the average mission. And we'd get up there to be several hundred, and sometimes the total toward the end there to be maybe 1,000, but of course you can't see 1,000 planes or you can't count 1,000. But how much good it did, I don't see the question. It didn't. It's just a question of how good. How much good.
As you look back now, after all the years, is there anything that particularly sticks out in your mind about your time with the 8th Air Force?
What, in what way? What do you mean?
Anything, something that really sort of sums up your experiences there?
Well, yes. I remember saying to myself, if I get out of this alive, what we're flying, I'm talking about, nothing will ever truly bother me again. And that's true. What you do, if I run up through the years an obstacle that you know, you just say, well, wait a minute. A year from now, we'll probably be laughing about this. I could have been buried in 45, I'm here. Seriously. And yeah, I don't think that any person who has been in combat is ever 100% the same. And I'm not saying the better or worse. I said it has an effect. It has to. And I didn't realize it for a long time. No question about it. I look at these things, you know, what we did, what was the training in obstacle courses and this and that. You did it, you were proud, and of course you had to get over that high fence because someone was on your butt, you know. Mm-hmm. But you did these things, and it wasn't anything extraordinary. Everyone is doing it. You wanted to do it. Let's say the day I was 18, I went down there, and that's not me. A lot of us. That's the point.
Okay.
All right. This is the crew that I went overseas with, that I flew with, and we came back together.
And that's you on the end?
And that is
top
me
row.
On the top row where my finger is right now.
Okay.
A few years younger. Hair was a little darker. And just one other thing. The reason we're grimacing is it was a pretty cold day. Are you shooting? Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. This is what we call a flak map. The light spots are either enemy fighter fields or heavy concentrations of their anti-aircraft guns. This flight was, I'm trying to read this without my glasses, and that's, the dates are on here. They were up at 0400 hours. Target were the coke plants at Dortmund and the Ruhr. And that day we lost 4 planes. The route is right there, in and out, code words, etc.
Okay.
March 24th is the day we dropped supplies from Montgomery at Wesel.
Okay, that's...
And according to my records, we lost 47 planes at the time. This was written at the time. 1 enlisted man fell from the bomb bay of the plane. He did. He fell out. He did. Got caught in the parachute harness or the
We're down to about 30 seconds.
I also have,
Yeah,
about
let me get a
the only thing I
close-up of
don't
that.
remember this day, this was as a second Louis, and when you get promoted, don't they give you a new one? They didn't, apparently. I don't remember. I don't have any.
No, they could, but the old one was still valid.